week's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Angela Armstrong, founder and president of Prime Capital Group. Thanks for joining me, Angela.
Thanks, Jesse. It's lovely to be here with you.
Nah, it's great to have you on here. And like I said before I hit record, I've seen your face on LinkedIn, but I don't think we've actually been in person with one another for probably almost 5 years. So it's very unfortunate.
It is, and we'll have to rectify that in the future soon.
I agree. I just need to figure out, I need to get with Mike and figure out this CFLA scheduling thing because it seems like they always overlap with something going on here. So I'll figure it out.
Okay, we'll make it happen.
But Angela, for the people who might not be familiar with you mind just kind of introducing yourself and your career to date in equipment finance?
Sure. I mean, I started literally out of university. I didn't really know what I was getting into, and I was trying to decide if I should go another path. I had one degree. I was thinking about doing a second degree or going maybe into law school. I was contemplating that, and a fellow that I had worked for over a summer job said, well, you should come and work with us for a year if you're not sure. And if you don't like the work you're doing here, we'll help you, go back to school and figure out what you want to do. I think I got sandbagged, Jesse, because here I am, literally 35 years later, I think, and could not be happier have got into this very obscure type of industry. And I don't think I'm alone in that experience, is that never heard of it and then can't leave it. So it's been a great journey.
That's awesome. What is it? The Hotel California reference, right?
You can never leave. I know.
I've been tempted a few times, and it's like, no, why would I leave this industry?
So the next, either CFLA or ELFA event, we have to do karaoke and do Hotel California. That'll be our thing.
I mean, maybe with your voice,
Oh no, I need the music really loud, but together we'll be brave together.
Okay, all right, well, we will figure that out. So do you mind just kind of introducing Prime Capital Group?
Sure. Prime Capital evolved because the company that I was with for 14 years was changing direction. And I was trying to decide, do I leave the industry? That was actually my game plan. And I interviewed for a bunch of other jobs and realized that I had been working in this really aspirational kind of startup, fast growth company where we had lots of room to grow and experiment and be creative. And all the places I was looking at, I just didn't see that same opportunity. And I decided to start my own company. So Prime Capital is an independent equipment lender. We do business across the country in Canada. We started with a line of credit. I convinced my husband to let me borrow against our house and started the business out of my basement. Had a little fireplace in the basement. It was cozy little one-person office, and started having customers. When I left my role, some of those customers were sort of following me, and I decided I should try to figure out how this business works. Prime is now grown, securitizing lender, doing business with entrepreneurs. It's a lot of fun.
So walk me through that conversation with your husband.
Well, he grew up with an entrepreneurial father. He was not super excited about it because he remembered the ups and downs, the moments where, they literally had this experience of moving across the city from house to house, whether the fortunes of the family were well or they were not maybe going so well. And he didn't want we had two little children. I had just given birth to our second daughter. He didn't want our children to experience a tumultuous upbringing. I mean, it certainly teaches you lessons, but clearly he didn't feel all those lessons were the ones he wanted to repeat in our family life. So we made a couple of arrangements to say, okay, I'll always keep you informed about the risk I'm taking, whether it's going well. You'll always get read in to what's happening, and we'll make a collective decision. So everything that we've done in the business, including moments where we had to renegotiate our roles in the family so that I could continue to kind of accelerate the business, we've always had some very deep conversations, really negotiations where we were able to realign, like say, okay, this is what you're doing in the family, what I'm doing in the family. And he had a full-time job all along as well. So it was, how do we make this work for both of us? It can't be one-sided. He doesn't work in the business, never did, but he was definitely always a supporter of mine. And without him, there wouldn't be a business.
No, that's awesome. And then on those days that maybe it's a little challenging, you guys just walk off. This is my side of the house. That's your side of the house.
Well, I can tell you there was days during COVID where I never left my chair for like 20 hours a day on video calls. And as you know, I was board chair for the Canadian Industry Association during that time, and it was incredible learning curves. But running a business at the same time, there was a lot of moments where I think I may have come down from my little office and to find him pouring me a glass of wine, just saying, I know you just need to disconnect. So let's not talk about work. Let's just do something else. So truly, I do think it takes a village to raise a child, whether that's you as a person, we all have an inner child, and that could be friends or family. I'm lucky enough to have good people in both of those types of circles. You can't do it by yourself. So I've been really fortunate that way.
Nope, nope, and that's like you said, it takes a village. um, so where are you guys headquartered, Angela?
Our primary office is based in Edmonton, Alberta. We're kind of directly north of Montana, and probably the bulwark of the economy here is oil and gas. So we have a lot in common with people that would be in the region of Texas. In fact, we're often characterized as Texas of the North, which means a lot of the work we've traditionally done is in heavy equipment used by contractors. We don't do drilling rigs per se, but we certainly do a lot of work that supports that industry. Over the years, however, we've really expanded to do a lot of things, anything light industrial, commercial. We definitely consider ourselves kind of a small ticket lender with a range of $5,000 to $1 million in terms of individual equipment transactions. We certainly have enterprise clients that would have much more exposure for an individual customer. But we also look at individual landscaping companies and welding machines, the like of that. We like to have a really diverse portfolio, both in asset type and type of client, origination of client. So I would say it's a pretty classic small ticket lending approach to the market, and we mitigate risk in that way.
And do you do do you have customers all throughout the provinces, or you typically stay to Central West?
Yeah, we've always had a strong Western Canadian base. I think it's, the advice they give a writer is to write what you know about. And I think that same advice applies extremely well to lending. You should lend what you know about and not pretend. I wouldn't do mortgage lending, for instance. I mean, I might hire somebody that knew that business, but I wouldn't pretend to do mortgage lending. I don't know that business. What I know is equipment, functional assets that drive revenue in businesses, and we try to stick to our knitting, which is some of the best advice I ever got from one of my mentors. And so that means that we have focused on geography that we know. But it's interesting, Jesse, over the last few years, Mary said about the lessons of COVID and the incredible growth. Not all of it was fun growth, but it was growth nonetheless. We actually have expanded our team as well into new jurisdictions. So we learned a lot of really great new skills and capabilities as a team. So we've got teams stretched across the country now and clients stretched across the country, which has been a lot of fun to learn and grow in those new jurisdictions.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can just imagine, especially with some of the hybrid models and everything else, eventually you're going to be pulled in those directions. And as a business leader, it's at what point do you sit there and be like, okay, we've expanded, maybe we just kind of go back a little bit.
Yeah, again, I mean, as long as you do the things that you're familiar with, so that the only thing you're learning is kind of the new jurisdiction, you're not learning a whole new wheelhouse and trying to shove it through a risk model in a really, that's the way you get into trouble in finance, right? Your portfolio sustainability is about making good long-term decisions. I mean, anybody that thinks this kind of finance is a get rich quick scheme hasn't really been in the business long enough, because the cycles are what prove your sustainability. So we've always tried to think that way, really with a long horizon. It means you have to be a bit more patient, and build your models for that, and then hire people that understand that as well. But it has tended to work in our favor, like to have that long horizon perspective, and the companies that I admire the most, they do that as well. They know what their value proposition is, the market, and they focus on delivering that really, really well.
Absolutely. And, there's a lot of entrants into this space over the last, what, 10, well, almost since like 2009, but they've never been through one of these cycles. So you're kind of wondering how that plays out for those particular, organizations.
There was a really interesting McKinsey report that came out in COVID that talked about, the two things. It talked about the flight to digital and the shock to incumbency. So that everyone was, because they were on this uncertain land, that everybody was willing to they were shocked into trying new things, and they needed the convenience of digital. And now I wonder, I haven't gone back to see if they've done a follow-up on that report, but I think some of that has remained true. There's some stickiness to that, in terms of we had to learn new things. We had to learn remote. We had to get serious about digital. We talked a little bit earlier about, let's just get e-signatures figured out before we go full blockchain. But they're both important. I mean, we have to,
Sure.
you grow or die. So if you're not learning, you're already, seceding away from that success track. We're relentless innovators. It's exhausting. You have to have the right kind of people on the team, that real growth mindset.
Yep.
And then you got to make sure you're finding those small wins. Sometimes innovation is a small I. It just means you took the friction out of a little thing. We just innovated our insurance process. It took us 6 months to figure out how to do it using tools we already had and a little bit of external support. But to be able to automate a pretty friction-filled, laborious process, it doesn't make you any money, but it's absolutely essential to the business operations. How do you do that? How do you solve that one thing? If you could just do one big thing like that every year, you'd have a tremendously lean and effective business. But it's hard to find the time and the willpower to do that in your business,
Sure, because it's all about, okay, how much is this going to help me hit my revenue numbers for the year? And it's kind of like, it's not really going to make me that. So why would I focus on that? Let's focus on, but like you say, scalability, right? More automation in the back, lean organization, you can make other investments.
So those McKinsey focuses on the shock to incumbency. If you're not making those changes, your clients are going to make the change. if you want them to stay with you, then you got to be the one that's bringing more value to the table. I think that COVID was really good for our industry, because I think we had not been very focused on change. Things were, why fix it if it ain't broke kind of philosophy. And now I see a lot of really good attention to how we improve our value proposition to our customers. And it makes me proud of our industry.
So, crystal ball, you've now 24 years at Prime Capital, right? If you could go back, any lesson learned or things you might have done differently, Angela?
Well,
I know it's a very tough question.
It's a very big question.
Very tough question. Maybe top two. Maybe top two.
Yeah, so I think that the two lessons I learned, and this isn't just for a finance business, I think it's for anybody that's growing any kind of business, is you have to be really honest and looking at yourself, especially if you're the founder of the business. What are you actually good at? Because a lot of people that are founders have very diverse skill sets, and we're a little bit schizophrenic in that we want to learn a lot of things. We have this joy in growth and learning, and maybe we get a little bit bored. but there's risk in allowing that kind of chaos to rule your business. So you got to figure out what you're good at, and then you got to bring people on that are good at what you're not good at, and you have to trust them to be in a track for a while and say, okay, we got to pick a lane and we got to walk in that for a while. We can't just be flitting about like butterflies landing on whatever flower seems to be attractive. And even butterflies have their preferences, right? Let's make sure we understand what our preferences are, and the skills that we have or the gaps that we need to fill, and let's work on that. It's a hard discipline. The other thing that I think often happens with businesses is you end up hiring too many people like you and not enough dissenters. You need diversity. You need to have people around the table that think differently from you and that might have insights into a market. Jesse, do you live in a place where it's hot a lot of the year?
Yeah, Arizona. Yep.
Okay. So would you ever conceive of living in a place that didn't have air conditioning?
No, no, that would be insane.
So, but in Canada, there are lots of places where I would say the last couple summers may have been a bit of an exception to that rule, but there are lots of homes here that don't have air conditioning, and you wouldn't conceive of that being a deterrent to buying a home. You would just say, well, it'll be hot for a couple of weeks of the year. So that, if you're a builder who's only ever built homes in Arizona, you might put yourself at a disadvantage in a different market because you assume you got to spend that extra money to put air conditioning or no one will buy the home. So I think it's like that. It's the diversity of things that from your vantage point, you'll never conceive of. Make sure you've got different kinds of thinkers and people that are willing to speak up and disagree with you, because sometimes that's the most valuable growth you're going to do in your business. Those are probably the two big ones, and they're both about personal growth. The other one, and I think we've talked about it, is the value of being in a network in your industry, being growth oriented, because you never want to be the smartest one in the room. You got to go seek out people that know more than you and then aspire to that. B, you should always be giving back and be the change that you want to see in the world. That's a pretty core value of mine, is that if I sit around and say A and B and C should be different and just complain about it, I'm not contributing to the change. So you better get out there and do that. Those are the things that I would say, the things that I think I would tell myself a lot sooner in my career path, and the things that have helped me grow and evolve.
Nope, that makes complete sense, and that transitions perfectly into my next conversation I wanted to have with you, which was women in equipment finance, right? You already went down a little bit of the DEI path, right? So it's like, what are your thoughts on? I mean, 35 years, just on the advancements. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't at the CFLA this year, but ELFA was last week, and just the level of men to women compared to when I got in the industry in 2005 compared to where it is now. I think some of it's intentional, which is what we need to be. But just wanted to kind of get your thoughts, Angela, on how women are advancing in this industry.
I think we're making great strides. It's taken a while, but I don't think our industry is alone in that. I think there's two sides to the equation. Let's go back to the air conditioner conversation. If you'd always lived in a region where air conditioners were given, it wouldn't occur to you that there could be a place where air conditioners aren't a given. It's just not part of your lexicon. And I think a lot of the incumbency issues that we've seen in terms of the lack of change for a long time, a lot of that was just because of having the blinders, the air conditioning blinders. I don't know what I don't know. I don't have that lived experience. The other thing I would share is that there's two sides of that table. There's how do we deal with that change and that ability to get diversity around the table, because just like I value that in my organization, I think all organizations they're better risk managed. They see to the horizon more effectively, and they're more profitable because of those things, because they avoid the big roadblocks and the big pitfalls or the chasms, by having those challenging thinkers around the table in a collegial conversations. Of course, everything needs to be respectful, but you need to have crucial conversations and respectful disagreements to get to the right outcome. The It's two-sided. One is the hiring expectations and how all companies that have a gap in female leadership, how they expect women to step up into roles. And it's well known that women crucially underestimate their ability to perform roles. They want to be overqualified before they'll go for the base level. I don't know the construct, like where did that come from? I can't tell you. We just know it to be true. We see it time and time again. Christine Lagarde had a really interesting story that she tried to make changes when she went into her new role and said, well, I better put my money where my mouth is, and we don't have enough diversity around our table. So she sent her recruiter out to go and find, she said, I want equal candidates, men and women, qualified, of course, for the roles that we need to hire, but you need to bring me 50-50. The recruiter brought back this envelope full of resumes, and she said, well, where are all the women? And the recruiter said they didn't apply. That's the problem, is they won't apply. So once our hiring strategies understand that crucial difference, we can be better. The flip side of it is women also need to understand this. And I think what I've seen, particularly in the last few years, is a substantially larger amount of conversation about the difference, and organizations being self-aware and acting in the capacity of saying, I truly understand the value of diversity and I want to have it around the table. I also think if we're looking forward, the next generation of employees that we need to recruit, they want to be in organizations that have good diverse talent and represent the diversity. We live in a very, very diverse marketplace compared to when I was in grade school or when I started in the industry, which is in the 80s, Jesse. So nobody heard that we say that out loud. So there's the change is coming. I see it, but it's got to be intentional from both sides, both from the employer side and from the employee side. And I encourage any prospective employers or employees wanting to step on that direction to take advantage of that knowledge.
No, I mean, absolutely. When we were coming up with the EF Cares Advisory Board and just the board in general, it's like, how do you do, how do we make, I don't want just a bunch of my friends on there because I want people to challenge me, because otherwise it's just me doing everything in a vacuum. It's like, why are we doing this? So you want to be challenged, even though it's uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable when you're doing something and people are always questioning you, but that's what makes you, kind of believe more in the process, or you understand where they're coming from. And it's how do you bring those together and make the right decision as an organization.
If you go back to we are biological creatures, if you just go back to some fundamentals and how do you grow muscle, you tear it a little bit. You can't become stronger without a little bit of pain. And as long as it's not catastrophic pain, we don't want to crush anybody. That's why you need collegial conversations, respectful disagree, and people need to be taught how to do that. It doesn't come naturally for most of us. If you look around your friends, do you pick people that disagree with you all the time? Probably not. Probably hang out with people that you have some things in common with. But I always find in any kind of conversation, you start with the common set and then you digress to the parts where you disagree. But you're exactly right. Doesn't matter what you're trying to accomplish. Those are the goals.
So the next conversation I wanted to have was around the CFLA, because I'm sure that's where we first crossed paths at some point in our careers, and kind of what the trade association means to you and those in-person networking events, Angela.
I admit that when I started attending CFLA events, which might have been just after the big liquidity events, or just before that, I might have started attending in the early 2000s. because I felt like there was so much I didn't know. And I felt so naive when I started my business. I said, I know what I know, but I know that I don't know what I don't know. And I think there's more that I don't know than that I do know. So not only by learning this path of entrepreneurism and how to navigate that, but I don't know anything about really running a leasing company from scratch, acquiring funding and capital, proper risk management, building documentation. I mean, I had a very thin slice of knowledge. And I recognized that I had to put myself in the context of people that were knowledgeable, people that were a lot smarter than I was, had a lot more experience. And what I discovered is every single person that I ever met or asked for advice or a little bit of time, every single person said yes. Not one has ever said no to me. And I honor that by making sure I volunteer and I give back and that I say yes to people that ask me now, because it's so important, that reciprocity, that learning culture, that the rising tide lifts all boats is truly philosophically important to me, that I want our industry to be better. For in Canada, we're losing our productive capacity. And it's really important to me that what our industry does helps lift the economy. So it's beyond, do I want my company to thrive so that my teams can thrive, so that my clients can thrive and we can continue to support them, make a bigger, better community by, one business at a time. Absolutely all those things. But I also feel like what we do contributes to a healthier economy, to diverse capital availability, more choice for customers. And those are all fundamentals of building a great country. I feel like I have to do my part. I could sit on the sidelines and complain, or I could take a little bit of effort, a little bit of my time and try to give that back. So since I think that's important, I want to model that. And the best way to do that is by stepping into the industry and doing what I can.
No, and it's the CFLA, ELFA, NIFA. It's similar conversations that you have with leaders like yourself, where you can go to even someone you just lost a deal to, ask a question, and they're going to give you an answer. I mean, not always. They're not going to spill the secret sauce, and you're never going to ask for it. But at the end of the day, as a community, we kind of rally together around things that just stress the industry, and we come together.
I think everybody truly wants a competitive marketplace, but we want a marketplace of good competitors, of competitors that, the rogues are disruptive and they harm our customers. At the end of the day, it's our customers that get hurt by that. If we can raise the bar, improve the standards, work with the policymakers and the legislators collectively to figure out what's really the best outcome here, not what gives me some kind of skatey advantage. Those are short-term horizon things, and they don't add up to value in the long run. In the long run, it's going to diminish the whole reputation of the industry. And if we all work together, we can pull a lot of weight, but we can't do it if we're selfish and self-serving. We've got to find ways to be really collectively thinking about reciprocity between us and our economies. What's good for the economies is good for our business as well.
Nope, spot on. And those rogue organizations, stuff that they do ends up being more of a problem for the industry, because then all these different compliance and regulations that come out of those. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, 100%. And sometimes they don't mean to be rogue, but they don't know.
right.
So it's not to say a disruption is bad. COVID was disruptive, and look at the digital growth that's happened for our industry. That was really enabling, and I think net good. But disruption is challenging, and nobody wants to be put on their heels because somebody's doing something different. But what if you could learn new skills and capabilities from that? I see it as more exciting. Bring them into the fold and let's figure out how to make the whole industry better.
Sure. So for the CFLA, I should have asked you this question before I hit record, so I apologize. Were you the first woman chair, or were there others before you?
No, I have the very distinct privilege of having been the first female chair.
Okay.
It's not to say that there weren't many other very qualified women in our industry, time and place, probably. Um, what I do think, though, is that you're never, for anybody had said, oh, I would never be ready to do that job, I wasn't ready. There were some things that happened that kind of sped that process up for me. You know, we had a couple of retirements, but I was certainly on that track. And I remember getting the phone call and saying, guess what, we're gonna nominate you, we want to make sure you're okay with that. And I said, let me think about it. And I went and I had a long conversation with my husband and with a really good colleague and mentor, and both of them said, will you ever be ready? And then I said, that's a really, I couldn't answer the question. It's like the friend of mine that challenged me to start my business. And I said, well, I don't know about this and this and this and this. And he said, well, you write all the things down that you don't know. And when you come to the one that you can't learn or figure out, that will be a good excuse not to do it. And he was absolutely spot on. There was no reason why I couldn't learn those things. Um, Anybody can do it if you have the will and the patience and you're committed to try. And we need people to help. We need people to try and to learn and grow. Again, that's diversity. If you assume that everybody that's at that table, that they had got some special criteria to get there, and so you count yourself out, that's exactly what you're doing. You're counting yourself out. And they won't know about you unless you step up and volunteer and you show up.
Sure. Sure. That's amazing. Congratulations on that honor.
Thank you. It was a great
So
experience.
I guess any words of wisdom for someone just getting into the industry?
It is a fascinating journey. And I'll tell you right now, I have staff that have been with me a few years, and every day they say, but I don't know. There's so much I don't know. I feel like I need a degree in insurance and I need a degree in this. And I said, and so do I. I feel like that every single day after decades in this industry. There's still so much I don't know. And that's what makes it exciting for me, is it doesn't feel like there's an end to the learning and to the growth. That's the fascinating thing about this business. But you can also get good enough at it to deliver really good value. And the relationships you build are long. There's a reason, circling back to the beginning of our conversation, where we have this Hotel California thing happening where people never leave, because there's so many new things that you can do if you want to. There's a lot of direct, look what you're doing, Jesse. This is completely unique in the
Yeah.
industry, and you built this out of a passion for sharing this kind of information and people's ideas. And I'm grateful that you're doing that. But this probably couldn't have happened 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So good for you for doing that. Thank you.
No, no, thank you for that. And I do ask everyone who comes on here, Angela, to give me a little fun fact about themselves. So anything you'd like to share with the audience here?
Sure. This is a silly one, if you don't mind. I can recite all of the American states in alphabetical order, and there's a reason for that. And it probably doesn't even need that much if you're American. Probably everyone can do that, or I'm assuming. But it's a really good Canadian party trick.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to put myself up to that challenge. So
We'll do that when we karaoke.
that's fair. Oh, and to that person who, the internal younger person that wants to know about, like, oh, I need insurance or all this stuff, you should show the book on the U.S. tax code for sales tax and be like, at least you don't have to memorize this.
I'm glad I don't have to.
And Angela, I guess in closing here, why would an organization want to do business with Angela Armstrong and Prime Capital Group?
Wow. I would say that if I asked our team, they would say, we care. We work first for you. We've got 23 going on 24 years of happy customers that prove that we're able to help them achieve their goals. We're entrepreneurs. We understand a day in the life. And we want to be the one easy way that we can make our clients' day, year, business experience a little bit easier, so they can sleep a little better at night.
Excellent. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Unfortunately, I think this is probably the most time that you and I have ever had uninterrupted. So, wouldn't have been able to do that without this platform.
100%.
Appreciate you, Angela. Appreciate all the work you're doing, and hopefully our paths cross somewhere in the near future.
I am looking forward to it. We're going to make that happen. You take care, Jesse, and thanks so much for your time.
Have a good day. Take care.
Bye-bye.